For me, this whole thing it's a spiritual journey, and so Benjamin and I grew up with Native teachings, and one of the things in Native teachings is the idea of two-spirited. So in Western culture, which is binary, there's straight and there's gay, there's good and there's bad, there's right and there's wrong, and in many Native cultures, especially before European contact, it's not binary. There are like shades of gray, and so there could be like you could have a person who's multi-sexed, and that not only they're recognized but oftentimes revered as having a certain kind of medicine. And so in many Native communities where there's been so much assimilated attitudes, mainly from Christianity, we've lost a lot of that, and so there's an incredible amount of teen suicides for gay and lesbian young people on the reservation. I mean, it's astronomical, and in communities of color in general. But there are a lot of traditional spiritual leaders who are trying to bring those teachings back, and so that was this idea of spiritual transformation was really key for me. So, in light of there's certain Native teachings that talk about this age that we're in, and one of the things they talk about is that we're coming into an age that has been ruled by masculine principles up until this point, and that right now the opposite of that is coming to rebalance it. So I'm intrigued with those, which you see similar ideas coming from different parts of the world and different cultures. And so a friend of mine convinced me to go see this Indian saint. Her name is Amaji. She's recognized as a living avatar, living saint on the level of a Jesus or a Buddha. And I was really reluctant to go, and I went, and I was, had my judgments and my, preconceived notions. And when I went and received her darshan, her blessing, I can't even tell you what hit me. I started sobbing, I fell to my knees, and I was like, whoa, what is happening here? I felt the heart open. So after that experience, they call her Amma, which means mother.
There's a wonderful movie about her. Have you seen that?
Yeah, darshan. So I was riding the bus home, not I don't think by accident, through the Castro, and in one of the magazine rights on the corner of 18th and Castro was a huge magazine that said Amma. So I got off the bus and I said, I want to go read about Amma since I just had this experience. And as it got closer, I saw a dark face with Amma. She's a very dark Hindu woman, and it's not Amma, it's John Amici. So I took this as a sign that the universe was talking to me, that the Divine Mother was guiding me. I think it was the Advocate.
So it was destiny.
It was the cover of the Advocate. And I felt like the goddess was directing me, and that I picked it up, and on the cover it said, John Amici, African-American NBA player, comes out of the closet, addresses homophobia in the professional sports world and African-American community. And I was like, I'm supposed to reach out to this brother. So I got home and I wrote him a letter, and I sent it to Benjamin, who I think got it to his manager, Steve, who's in the house. And somehow we got the letter to the communication to John, and John responded within days. And here he is. The Divine Mother works in mysterious ways.
Is this your first film experience?
Yes, absolutely. I am an alien in this entire environment, frankly.
Not entirely. Not anymore.
Somewhat alien. Not necessarily in this bar. But, for me, films have been very important. When I came out actually about 15 years ago in Britain, and that never came across the Atlantic. People didn't think it was very interesting. But it was because I saw a film, Hetty MacDonald, I think, Beautiful Thing. And I got to LA, where I spent some of the year, and I get handed scripts often for no apparent reason. But this one came across, and I read it, and despite the formatting of scripts, which makes no sense to me, I read it and I could see it. I could see this film, and I could see how it could be impactful. I could see how, for a change, issues of identity were not dealt with so discreetly. That black meant this, that Latino meant this discrete number of things, that gay meant this discrete number of things. And instead it was a merging of identities and something more sophisticated, which is what we need. If there's anything that we've seen through Obama, it is that a more sophisticated view of everything, including identity, is required for us to move forward in a successful way. And this film, I think, for the first time I watched it, I'm like, yes, why not a black hipster lady? Why not? But in some cases, you know, it's hard to find people of color outside of these very, very stereotyped roles, and when people try, they just don't work. Whereas here, I could see it on the paper, and I thought if, you know, someone as film naive as me could see it on the paper, and then I met these gentlemen, and their obvious passion for this was infectious.
I have to say that I didn't get to spend very much time with John on set, but I met him early on, and as actors, we're always looking for source material, always looking for something to, you know, play from. And I took a short walk with John from lunch one day, and I asked if I could speak with him, and asked him, you know, about his experiences when he came out in the NBA, and he told me about some of his experiences and how some of your fellow players, you know, failed to be your friends, people that were your friends. And I went back to my trailer, and it kind of just knocked me on my ass, made me feel bad, made me feel bad for you, maybe feel bad for anybody else in that position. And I knew right then how I was going to play a number of the scenes in the film just from what he told me and his experience. And, you know, I thank you for that. I know you don't think that you had very much to do with this film, but for my performance, you did. You definitely did. I mean, how would I feel in that way? And just seeing the way that he described that, it just meant a lot to me, and I could draw from it.
Sorry.
No, but the last thing I wanted to say was that I think that she's a test for him, and obviously he's a test for her. And I think she passes her test. You know, okay, but anyway.
You know, I also think that I would add that she personifies that which is missing within himself, or at least that which he doesn't recognize yet within himself, which is the presence of the feminine energy. Everywhere around him, people are evolved. His best friend, who is, you know, is all male, and yet someone who is completely in balance with and in recognition of the power of women, the power of feminine energy. His son is the same thing, although comes in a different shape or different form. It's threatening to him. He's totally out of touch with it. Yes, he's a loving father and devoted, but if you notice in the film, he cannot demonstrate that love physically. He dare not touch, but he shows his love in other ways. Builds his son a car, cooks him a nice warm meal, tucks him into bed, and that's part of the way he was socialized. So I think part of the way Peter designed it was that when Che finally finds himself completely alone and away from everything that he cares about, it takes a woman. It takes the personification of the divine feminine to lead him back, potentially, to the road to redemption. And that's what happens at the end of the film, is that we don't know what transpired after he meets her at the door, completely empty and ready for anything. But we assume that with her help, her guidance, her suggestion, he's made a decision to try to make it right, to try to understand where he fits within this dynamic between his son.
I think what's very clear is that you're right. It shows in the film, beautiful, that you needed her. That's why we don't really care what happened. We just know that you came back to that.
But he had to do it for himself. I mean, you get that he's alone in that journey. You know, I like that he's going alone to his son, that it's going to be a long journey for him. And a lot of that, I mean, he'll have some support, but it is something he has to do the work himself.
Why did you want an African American to play the character? Why was the
Brown on black is beautiful. What you mean?
Obviously.
Come on.
Say no more.